All right, I am live again. Had a little technical difficulty earlier. And tonight, right now, I am going to get into what is the ego and how does it create a core belief about ourselves that can really, really hold us back. All right. So if you got any questions, feel free to ask. I'm going to put up my banner right now. And I'm going to go over to the comments. And then what I'm going to do is share my screen. And let me know who's watching. Okay, so share my screen here. And we're going to go into different one right there. Actually, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And I'm going to go into a specific screen share application window. And I'm going to identify what the ego is. All right. So if you can all see me, what is the ego? So the ego is created at when we're born into this world. And it is the start of the identity of when you start to think about yourself, when you start to think about the world and others, it's coming from the ego for the most part. I am this, they are this, the world is like this. And in the beginning or in the beginning parts of our lives as children, as babies, most of us do not have much of an ego. I guess it gets started then. It's usually not until like 2 or 3 or something like that it really starts to be shaped, or we can really start to identify with it. Where you hear a lot of kids say it's mine, or you can really start to see them like identify with themselves. So what is the ego? It's a thought system, and it shapes how we live our life powerfully. And it's very powerful, and it wants to be right all the time. It wants to be right all the time. And it's built out of separation. I am me, they are them, the world is over there. It's built around specialness. It's built around duality of black, white, left, right, life or death. Anything that's not me is different. And it doesn't generally allow anybody to, doesn't allow itself to see others as the same as itself. And it really holds a lot of people back from being vulnerable. And what happens in the core creation of our identity is, let me just pull up this other stop share, and I'm going to share this share screen again. And application window. So what happens is something happens in our life that's generally traumatic or perceived as traumatic. And it creates this perception in life. And when it creates that perception, it puts on a view of the world, a view of who we think we are and how we relate to the world. And if you can imagine this, that the first view is perception, and then that causes an emotion, that causes a thought, and then that has a belief around it, and then a core desire. And then underneath all of it, as I think is energy, love, but that gets masked over, and we really don't know or don't understand that, but there's a constant yearning in life for something to be better. So that core belief, that core desire gets put in front when this moment happens, it gets put in front of everything else, and we want to run to it. So for me, And I'm going to go into a document here in a minute that really breaks this down. For me, what happened was I had a core belief that I wasn't wanted, that I wasn't really desired. Now, the key thing here is that it's a belief. It's not a fact. It's not truth. The core of the story for me was my dad had me when I was 45, or when he was 45, and my mom was younger. There was, he was already feeding 3 kids. And then 7 years later, I show up. And if I put myself in his shoes, and I did this as an exercise a while ago, the first thing that came to my mind was, man, I'm not sure I would really want that situation or that person. And that energy from my father got transposed onto me subconsciously, and I took that on. It wasn't anything that was, consciously done, but the belief got put on nonetheless. And how that affected me was, for most of my life, I never felt like I fit in. And it ran this really core feeling of being loved but not wanted. And so what I want to run through inside of this video is demonstrating how to find your core belief, because everybody's is a little different. But when that core belief or that core desire is created, it runs us, and we create so much. There's so much energy put into it. There's no stopping it. It just happens. You can't prevent this. But it does cause so much pain, so much hurt, so much longing in life that it never gets fulfilled until you figure out what this really is. And it's my belief that this desire that's created gets put in front of the peace of God. And most people that I've experienced, they just want to have a calm mind. That's why so many people end up at the beach. It's why so many people end up at the lake, because water is very calming. They just want to soothe their mind. They're tired of the negative. Our egos are just so full of negativity and beating ourselves up because it's trying to get to this point which it actually can't create. So let me pull up this his document here and show it to you. Share screen. Share my screen. Actually, let me take this out here. I'm going to pull this up over here, and I'm going to stop again, and I'm going to share again. Chrome tab. There we go. All right. So I'm going to walk you through this. And the first thing to think about is what is an upset in your life that when it happens, you probably feel damned if you do, damned if you don't, And for me, it was always, if not always, but in the matter of speaking up for myself and doing what I really want. And one of the common ones was asking a woman out, or a girl when I was younger. And I always had this sense I just couldn't do it. It was really hard. So this is the first layer of perception that we're going in after. Let me pull this up real quick. I got to see it on my end. All right. So the first cut is when I think about this future action or this moment of upset or something that's causing me to perceive the world, and I get, all these negative feelings come up, right? Something that's usually you're blocked inside of things, okay? So for me, it was when I would think about the situation of asking a woman out. And the way you go through this exercise is you're going to walk in. The next step we're going to go into how do you feel when you're about to do that or you're in that situation. And I'm just checking here to see how well things are streaming, make sure everything's looking good. Okay, everything's looking good. So when I think about, asking a woman out, what that brings up for me is that feeling of rejection and just like, ugh, like I completely avoid it. Don't want to talk about it. Don't want to go into it. I just want to avoid it. Because, and here's the thing to think about, I think blank is to blame because I'm afraid that blank will happen in the future. And for me, it's because I think attractive women are to blame because I'm afraid that I'll be alone in the future. And this happened, a long time ago when I got rejected originally, right? Or the story of rejection. And these thoughts or feelings prove that I'm right, that I'm not wanted. So what the ego does is it has this thought system that keeps you in a loop, that never lets you get down to a core desire. Because underneath the belief that I'm not wanted is that I really want to be wanted. But it doesn't present itself like that in our daily life. It's too hurtful. It's too painful for most in the very beginning stages to really acknowledge that. But once we do and we're able to let it go, that's when we stop worrying about what others might think about us. And it's really amazing. So if you have something that, is holding you back, what is the upset? What is the feeling that it causes? And then because you're thinking that someone's to blame and or I'm afraid that something will happen in the future, these thoughts or feelings, or these thoughts and feelings prove I'm right that blank. And for me, it's not being wanted. And what I really want and expect is to be wanted. And when you can get down to that core for yourself, what ends up happening is you let that core belief go. And it starts a whole healing process, and it doesn't run your life anymore. I just got done working with a client, and this client had a really hard time with speaking up for themselves. And the core belief there for this person was that they didn't feel heard in their life. And so when we got down to the very bottom, this deep desire to be heard, now that's the desire that they put in front of their own peace of mind, their own peace of God. And when we do that, we do it as young children. We don't have any knowledge of this. It just happens. It's what the ego does. It runs our life. And so, my client, most of his life has been trying to be heard and always felt frustrated. And now he's on the healing path to really let this go. And for me, when I was able to let this go, what ended up happening was all of these feelings that I needed to be liked anymore disappeared. And I was able to start being more confident. I was able to start speaking up for myself and really starting to take a whole lot of action to really what I want to create. More business, asking, more women out, like all of this stuff. It's been really amazing. So I just wanted to throw this out here that if you've got any questions around how to get to the core belief or the core desire that you've put in front of your own peace of mind, ask me a question or shoot me a private message. I'm happy to share. It's a very powerful discovery, and it will open up a whole new world as far as like peace of mind goes. So I hope this has been helpful. If you got any questions, let me know. Talk to you later. Bye bye.